Star Trek has given us some of the greatest, most jaw-dropping reasons to tune in next week, starting all the way back in the original series OG two-parter The Menagerie, and getting a Borg upgrade in The Next Generation. When the franchise has blessed us with dozens of examples, choosing amongst them is also a difficult and ultimately subjective exercise. One person's great is another's threshold, move along home, and masks. So, with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Trek Culture, here with the 10 greatest Star Trek cliffhanger episodes. Number 10. What Does the Fox Say? Scorpion Part 1. The cold opener of Star Trek Voyager's Season 3 finale is electrifyingly exciting enough at less than 20 seconds. The Borg cut off mid-recruitment speech. Resistance is definitely not futile if you're a member of this then unknown alien race, as they make a quick work of 2 cubes, the first time more than one had been seen on screen. Who could do this to the Borg? Asked Tom Paris later in the episode. Future Boothby impersonators and visitors from fluidic space, species 8472, of course. This is it. Voyager has reached that inevitable stage in its long journey. They must somehow find a way to traverse the collective's home turf. Well, Captain Ransom and his gaggle of reprobates managed to avoid it, but it's probably best not to wonder how. When it becomes clear that going forward is no longer an option, and that heading back would almost certainly mean never seeing Earth again, Captain Janeway strikes a Faustian bargain. A deal with the devil of the 24th century and beyond, the Borg. As the episode draws to a close, and in spite of Chakotay's foxy parable, Janeway is aboard a Borg cube attempting to negotiate when species 8472 attack. In a move that makes the Xindi look like rank amateurs, several bioships link up and destroy the entire Borg planet. The last we see of Voyager is the ship being dragged away under tractor beam by the Borg cube. Scorpion Part 2 didn't air in the US until over 3 months later, so the summer of '97 probably dragged a little too. A novelty for this episode, almost all the visual effects were created using CGI, the good majority of which still arguably holds up to this day. One notable exception to the all-computer approach was for the shots featuring the dismembered Borg corpses. The stack of deceased drones was in fact rather ingeniously created by cutting up and gluing together a bunch of Playmate Borg action figures. You'll never watch those scenes the same way again. Scorpion, very nearly, wasn't the Season 3 finale of Voyager, however. Originally, the next cliffhanger on our list was meant to take its spot. Number 9. More Than a Bad Hair Day, Year of Hell Part 1. Kes did warn of the annus horribilis to come in that Voyager Season 3 before and after the Doctor's hair episode. However, she presumably either forgot to mention, and the Doctor deleted it from his memory files, the exact temporal variance of the chronoton torpedoes in her report, 1.47 microseconds by the way, or that detail of her encounter with the Krenin was rapidly retconned under the bridge carpet. Might have saved Seven and Tuvok a lot of time and injury. In any event, the Season 4 two-parter is undeniably one of Voyager and Star Trek's greatest, with a cliffhanger to end all cliffhangers. First slated to end Season 3 before it was decided to give Kes the boot and bring 7 of 9 on board, the writers also considered making the Year of Hell extend the length of Season 4. That might have made for an exciting watch, but it's probably for the best that an entire season never technically happened. The climax to Year of Hell Part 1 is as suspenseful as it gets. Voyager has sustained extensive damage due to repeated Krenin attacks. Over half the ship has been destroyed, life support is failing, and the vast majority of the crew will simply no longer be able to survive on board. As Captain Janeway puts it to them in an emotional and masterfully delivered speech, asking you to stay would be asking you to die. The last we see over the to be continued is the escape pods being launched as everyone but the senior staff is forced to abandon ship into hostile space. The audience is left wondering whether Voyager will ever recover from the damage, and if we will ever see most of the crew again. Luckily, Year of Hell Part 2 aired just a week later on the 12th of November 1997 in the US, so there wasn't an infernal wait to find out at least. Number 8. It's Annihilation and a Starship Extravaganza Supernova Part 1. Star Trek Prodigy burst onto our screens with the same energy as a proto-jump. Its first season is unquestionably some of the best Trek we've ever had. Along with the return of some fan-favourite legacy luminaries and the introduction of a band of bright, new, lovable faces, the show, as it reached the zenith of its stellar story arc, gave us a cliffhanger that shines alongside the greats. As Supernova Part 1 opens, the Protostar is staring down an armada of Starfleet ships. Owing to some Freaky Friday goings-on in the previous episode, Mind Walk, Admiral Janeway is confined on medical leave to the brig of the Dauntless, unable to warn the bridge not to accept hail from the Protostar and unleash the living hell of the living construct. Oh, and if you didn't tear up even a teeny bit during that scene with the Brenari officer, you're colder than a Vulcan on the northern wastes of Andoria. Team Valnakut Vengeance manages to beam aboard the Protostar, and after a kick-ass battle with the crew, including that majestic Murph moment, Essentia opens a channel to the fleet, which then begins to fire on itself. The Universal Translator goes offline, and what follows is a beautifully crafted scene in which the young Gwyn must use her linguistic talents to communicate with her friends and convince the Federation's allies to assist. Why would they? As Gwyn herself puts it, because in the infinite of space, everyone needs to know there is a place out there willing to accept us all, no matter how different we think we are. This moment is deeply moving and a testament to the ethos of Trek. The heartfelt plea works. Klingon, Vulcan, Ferengi, and even Gorn ships answer the call. But the joy of seeing help arrive turns to despair when more and more Starfleet ships infected by the living construct start to warp in, only to face destruction. "We can't stop the signal," says Gwyn ominously, as phasers and photon torpedoes continue to fire all around. It's annihilation. A truly great and explosive ending to a luminescent episode. Number 7. The Truth Is, I Never Left You. Tears of the Prophets. If he's taken his baseball with him, you know it's got real. The final scene of the last episode of Deep Space Nine Season 6 is more meditative than your usual cliffhanger. There have been tragic events on the station, and so Captain Sisko has taken an indefinite leave of absence. As the episode comes to a close, we simply see him cleaning his clams in the alley behind his father's restaurant on Earth. Don't be fooled by the deceptive simplicity of this cliffhanger, however. This is one of Star Trek's most powerful season finales that upended our expectations and radically altered the landscape for our cast of characters. "He'll be in a little while," Sisko says to Jake, as we, the audience, were left wondering just how long a while away from the station and Starfleet he would be, or if he'd ever return. Of course, the most shocking and emotional moment in Tears of the Prophets, and the large part of the reason why Sisko left, along with the disappearance of the wormhole and the Bajoran deities, was the brutal death of Jadzia Dax at the hands of Pa Wraith Dukat. As difficult as it was to watch Jadzia summarily dispatched from the show, the real-life reasons behind the departure were all the more painful for actress Terry Farrell. When her contract was up for renewal for Season 7, Farrell wanted to negotiate fewer episodes appearances so that she could work on other projects. Producers stubbornly refused, and as Farrell revealed in the documentary What We Left Behind, one producer even told her that she really should sign the next contract because if she weren't there on set, she'd be at Kmart. Understandably, this was the last straw for Farrell and she decided to leave. Along with Sisko, the Season 6 finale also left us in doubt about the future of the Dax symbiont. Fortunately, and salvaging at least something from the Farrell fiasco, neither Dax nor Sisko were gone for long. Season 7 quickly reassured us with its strong first outings, and the new Dax, Ezri, was allowed to get with the crew and fans in her own way. Number 6. Guess who's coming to QO'NOS? Redemption Part 1. Just so long as you like the intricacies of Klingon internal politics, Tom, and enjoy the odd dalliance with interplanetary diplomacy, Redemption Part 1 is a great cliffhanger to Season 4 of The Next Generation. By the end of the episode, Worf has resigned his Starfleet commission so he can go off to fight alongside Gowron in the burgeoning Klingon Civil War. And that's about it, really. Ha, of course not. For who is backing the Duras' challenge to the leadership of the High Council? The Romulans, led by a surprisingly familiar face. Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be... We were all as shocked to see Denise Crosby as Seela emerge from the shadows as Captain Picard appeared to be when she popped up again on the Enterprise D view screen in Part 2. Tasha? asked a baffled Picard. Well, she does look a lot like her mother. The character of Sela was largely the brainchild of Crosby, who was inspired by the multiple possibilities afforded by time travel in yesterday's Enterprise. Sela's plans are thwarted by Data in the second part, but Crosby reprised the role in Unification Parts 1 and 2 and returned as Natasha Yar in All Good Things. Not only therefore did Redemption skillfully solidify the legacy of what is considered to be another greatest episode and turning point for the next generation, it carried on at least some semblance of a story for a promising character who had quite literally been thrown away in season 1. And even if we'd like to have seen more of Sela than we ever did, Redemption thoroughly deserves its place on this list. Number 5, I hope you brought a good book, Shockwave Part 1. The season 1 finale of Enterprise opens with a dramatic and quite literal rendering of the episode title. Tucker, T'Pol, Archer and Reed are in a shuttle pod descending down to Paragon 2, a planet with dangerously high levels of tetrazine in its atmosphere, requiring a strict protocol to be followed by the Enterprise crew to avoid setting the world on fire and killing all its inhabitants. Health and safety gone mad, I tell you! Suddenly, a huge explosion rocks the shuttle pod and the shockwave lays waste to the Paragon colony. Mission cancelled. Go home. Fortunately, formerly KIA and wealth of information for a cloud of vapour, crewman Daniels has a sit-down in the past with I've Forgotten Trip's catchphrase Captain Archer to clear up a few things and pass on some handy quantum engineering tips. Enterprise didn't cause the explosion. A faction in the temporal Cold War, namely the Suliban working for the shadowy humanoid figure, did. The writers were considering disclosing the identity of the humanoid figure in the two-parter, but as Brannon Braga noted in Star Trek Communicator issue 139, it just seemed too soon. Well, as we know, it eventually got too late for any such revelations. It's some other Daniels time travel meddling that gives us the shocking final scene. As Archer goes to surrender himself to the Suliban, whose cell ships are surrounding Enterprise, Daniels snatches him out of the turbo lift onto 31st century Earth. Slight hiccup in transporting Archer to the future, bear with. Daniels has inadvertently and radically altered the timeline. Earth has been laid waste too long ago. There are no more time portals to get Archer home, and in the 22nd century, the Suliban are targeting Enterprise's warp core. As the to-be-continued rolls, the camera zooms out over a city in ruins, and Archer is standing on the edge of a destroyed skyscraper. Can you get more cliffhangery without an actual cliff? Number 4. HUGH, Borg 5, The Crew, Data, CROSIS, Lore. Descent Part 1. Forget the final reveal or even the entire episode. Descent Part 1 could have ended after about 2 minutes and still have made this list. With a trio of historic holograms like that, and one most memorably playing himself, Data's end program on the poker game is almost a cliffhanger in and of itself. Indeed, the conclusion to the opener could also qualify. There is a Borg behind that there door! Various ways to end Season 6 were considered before writers and producers settled on the Data Lore Borg cliffhanger. Whatever the alternatives, we're glad we got this rip-roaring reunion for the Sons of Soong. Who didn't enjoy hearing the more diabolical than usual Data lay out his plans to destroy the Federation by his brother's side? Families that slay together, stay together. Descent Part 1 also gave us a fascinating new twist on the Borg, as Hugh's individuality echoed to others in the collective. They're a lot more chatty than your regular drones in any case, but just as fearsome with Lore as their leader. And whilst it's fairly obvious that he's been manipulated, we're also left hanging about Data's newfound dark side and what that means for the fate of Picard, Troy and Geordi. Plus, Dr. Crusher utterly bosses it back on the Enterprise. Number 3, nearly nixing the NX-01, Azati Prime. The blood-pumping, heart-pounding, action-filled Season 3 outing of Star Trek Enterprise Azati Prime raises more stakes than Kirk chopping wood in the Nexus. As the Xindi arc comes to a head, the ante is upped not just for Enterprise and its crew, but for everyone living on Earth. In the episode, using information about the construction site of the Xindi weapon they obtained from Degra in a creative pre-holodeck days ruse, the crew of Enterprise arrive at the Azati Prime star system. Captain Archer decides to lead a solo suicide mission aboard the Xindi insectoid shuttle to blow up the weapon, although not before a little debate with Daniels on the Enterprise J in the 26th century. When Archer gets to the launch site, however, the weapon has already been moved. He's captured and interrogated, but does eventually get to try a more diplomatic approach with Degra. The reptilians and the insectoids are having none of it though, and 4 of their ships attack Enterprise. The battle is epic. Just about everything that can't explode does explode. Buttresses fall, decks decompress, and several unfortunate crew members are ripped out into space as Xindi weapons cut large swathes through the hull. The last thing we see before the screen cuts to black is Enterprise adrift as particle beams continue to rain down. Not off a cliff, the ship is left hanging in space. It looks like the end for the NX-01. Spoiler alert, it wasn't, but the damage Enterprise sustained in this critical cliffhanger would follow it for several episodes, and even into season 4. Number 2. Shades of Grey. Just kidding. Chain of Command Part 1. In an Orwellian two-parter of Star Trek The Next Generation that has as many lights as it does a new number of shift rotations, Captain Picard is promptly relieved of command of the Enterprise. The Cardassians are up to no good, and he must go on a mission. Something about theta band expertise, with Dr. Crusher and Worf to stop some metagenic madness. Alas, it's all an elaborate ruse to capture Picard, and by the end of Part 1, he's the prisoner of the unilluminated Gul Madred. If the Gul isn't satisfied with the answers he gets, Picard will die. Still, getting to wear those awesome undercover outfits was totally worth it. Chain of Command continues to rank among the greats for several reasons. Not least for the tour de force performances from the legendary David Warner and his old colleague Patrick Stewart in the second half. The introduction of Ronnie Cox's no-nonsense, get-it-done Captain Jellicoe was also a masterstroke. In spite of his axiomatically different approach to command than the Keeper of Fish, we warmed to the character, and it was a delight to see him return in Star Trek Prodigy. Oh, and at one point in the episode, Crusher, Picard and Worf do actually hang over a cliff. I rest my case. Number 1. Where Your Old Man Was, Jack. The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1. I mean, could it have been anything else for number 1 than the number one moment? Mr. Worf, fire. It's not Hannah Montana, it's the Next Generation Season 3 finale, the cliffhanger that set the benchmark and set it high for every Star Trek cliffhanger that followed. The Best of Both Worlds seems to have achieved something rather unique. Pretty much everyone, even in the cacophonously divided world of the internet, agrees that it's great. Look at reviews online even today, and descriptors like outstanding, game-changing, and masterpiece abound. Part 1 and Part 2 also tend to make just about every best of or essential list going, and not just the Trek ones. And far be it for us to offer any kind of dissenting opinion either. There's a reason it gets all the love. It really is just that good. The Locutus twist and the Riker response was a defining moment in Star Trek history, written and played to perfection, and left fans in 1990 with one heck of a summer wait for answers. This cliffhanger episode was so monumental a turning point for the franchise that its after effects continue to reverberate down to the new Next Generation. Only very recently, in a remarkable scene from Star Trek Picard's standout Season 3, Jean-Luc was confronted about his time as Borg figurehead, in the presence of his son Jack, no less, by lovable and clearly traumatized dipshit from Chicago, Captain Liam Shaw. Picard was not responsible for his actions, but those affected by them are still dealing with the consequences. Such is the now 3-decade-plus staying power of the greatest Star Trek cliffhanger. And that concludes our list. If you think we missed a really important cliffhanger, then please do let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell so you never miss a Trek Culture video ever again. Also, head over to Twitter and Instagram to follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with Trek Culture. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to boldly go where no one has gone before.